Happy evening, everyone. I hope all of you are doing fantastic. It gives me an immense pleasure to welcome all the participants for RIASK development webinars. RIASK stands for Research, Innovation, Attitude, Skill, Knowledge Development Webinar Series. This webinar series is offered to you by Mr. Priya Krishna Mohanty, the Assistant Professor from Department of Tourism, School of Professional Studies. Let me tell you the objective of the RISK webinar series. I request everyone to keep your mic muted.
Second semester students who are there, VDAB and VDR and VDAN. We don't have
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I have muted. So the objective of this RSK development webinar is, as researchers in India, most of the times we are limited with the resources, we were limited with the knowledge, we were limited with the skills and attitude in terms of doing a quality research is concerned. So in order to bridge the gap, we have this RISK, research for research and innovation attitude, knowledge and skill development webinar series. This webinar series is going to be conducted towards the end of the June 2022. So I request everyone to take out your time, exactly 45 minutes for one webinar, 30 minutes will be for the presentation, and 15 minutes for your informal questions. You can feel really comfortable to ask any kind of questions to the resource person as well as to the other experts who are attending this session. Will be glad to assist you to enhance your knowledge as much as possible, so that when you are completing this webinar series, you will have requisite knowledge, skills, and attitude to do quality research in India. So with this note, I welcome Mr. Priya Krishna Mohanty as well as all the participants for a wonderful kickstart to the first day of RSK development webinar series. So over to you, Mr. Priya.
Thank you so much, Sudhakar sir. So before we start the presentation, so there has been something that has been itching my mind, that why and like what is the importance of having a webinar over a period of time. So we decided that we will be having this webinar over a period of time because of the two issues. So as a researcher, so I have submitted my thesis, and it has been, I mean, all the reports have also arrived. So I, as a researcher, or I as a PhD scholar, when I was there doing my PhD in Pondicherry University, I came across a lot of problems. And at that time, I was thinking that I should have, or it would have been great if there would have been somebody other than my guide who can guide us, because there are some things that we can tell the guide, and there are some of the issues that we only have to sort. So this webinar was based on that idea of helping the scholars, or helping the aspirant writers to do proper research. So this will be a properly generic kind of presentation. It won't be something related to tourism or social sciences or science. If you are from other background also, you can still relate to these issues, and you can still make use of it. So I request everyone, and the reason behind keeping the time frame only up to 30 minutes is the reason that we want to get a continuous evaluation process. So more than me, I would request all the participants to join in and pitch in their, kind of queries, because that queries will be much more important than my presentation. So I would have faced some of the issues, but others would not have faced that same type of issues. So I would like to know also from the participant perspective. So we would keep that as an interactive session, and we will start this presentation. So I always wanted to start the research procedure. So when I joined the PhD program at Pondicherry University, I thought that what else can be seen, what is not seen. Okay, so I wanted to know that where all the people are starting and where I should start. So in the beginning, I got a chance to, like participate in many of the social science webinar, which are organized by many of the great institutes like JNU or so as to say Delhi School of Economics. And I found out that all good researchers have one thing in common, that they do not start research rightly. I mean, they do not start research right away. Rather than that, they first understand the philosophy of research, and philosophy, that is why there is a PhD. So that PH is for philosophy, that PH stands for philosophy, so doctoral in philosophy. But many of the times what happens is that in the process of developing you as a researcher, I have seen many of the researchers starting with the tools. So there is a quite bit of fascination towards what tools should I use. But the whole idea of research should not be method based rather than a methodology based, that we will be discussing today. So Sumit sir, please can you go to the next slide? Next slide. Okay. So please go back to the second slide. That's such. Back. Okay, so this is the debate that we are going to discuss today, research and philosophy. So many a times if you see, the debate is between philosophy and research, and the very critical thing to important, or the critical thing to note here is that philosophy and research goes hand in hand, but at the same time there is a debate that we will be discussing now. So please go to the next slide. There is a slight problem in the transition. Yes. So Stephen Hawking, as you know, is a very brilliant scientist, and he comes from the background of science. And he says that why are we here? Where do we come from? Traditionally, these questions are supposed to be answered by the philosophers. But what happened over the period of time is philosophy. He says that philosophy is dead. Philosophers have not kept up with the modern developments in science. So what happened in the process of development of research is that we kind of missed that philosophy part. And it is not just like that it happened, but rather what happened is that we did not know that why philosophy is becoming a major part. So this is the view of a scientist, so pure scientist. We will see the next slide, in which we will see a social scientist perspective. Can you please go to the next slide? This is coming late. Okay, so this is Carl Sagan. He is one of my favorite scientists, and he says that the cosmos is within us. We are made of star stuff, and we are a way for the universe to know itself. Now, if you see this definition as such, you will know that what is happening is Carl Sagan was a scientist, and he was an astro scientist. However, he's stuff. I mean, however, his behavior or his quotes are much more like philosophy. So we have to understand the basic philosophy, and the basic idea behind knowing the philosophy is to position yourself. First, any researcher has to make efforts to position themselves, that what type of researcher are they? Are they ontologist? I mean, what are their ontological standpoint? What are their epistemological standpoint? What should be the methods? What should be the methodology? What should be the paradigms? So these are the questions that we are going to discuss in the next slide. Sumit sir, next slide, please. Okay, so why is this slide important? So I have I have had the pleasure of being in many of the review committees, and while we are reading many of the articles, we find that the depth of research is not there, and many a times you will find that comment that depth of research absent. Now, what do we call as depth of research? So basically, a researcher is not somebody who knows the methods. So methods is a process in which you can only in 6 months you can know the methods. You take SPSS, you take max QDA, you take NVivo, you take like any of the bibliometric softwares, all these things can be learned in 6 months. However, something that cannot be learned in 6 months or over the period of 5 years is the process of knowing your standpoints. So we will discuss what are the standpoints and what are the most important terminologies that you should be inculcating or that you should be getting familiarized as you move on in your research. So first thing that comes in your research is the process of ontology. Very simply, if you put, and these are philosophical terms, so there are chances that if you would have come across these terms, you would have got confused over the while reading it, because the whole the whole way how these ontological issues are discussed in many of the books. I find that many of the books are not clearly mentioning what is this ontology basically. But if you really say it, ontology is nothing but what is reality. So, and epistemology is how can I know the reality? So I will tell you the difference. So let's take an example of sun setting up in the east. Okay, so we all know that the sun is setting up in the east, but we all know whether it is reality or is it truth. So that we have to discuss. So reality is something which is universal. So sun never sets up in the east. Rather than that, sun is actually constant and earth is actually revolving around it. Okay, so the reality is something which is different from what we see, okay, and what we perceive ourselves. So epistemology is how can I know the reality? What is the process of knowing the reality? So ontology is basically universal in nature. Epistemology is something related to you as a researcher. So please use these terms as you are, or position your ontological frames, and we will be discussing that what are the types of ontology, what are the types of epistemology in the next slide. But first understand that what is the reality. So reality and truth are two different things. What is true for you may not be true for me, because the perspectives may vary. So epistemology, many of the times you would be reading that my epistemological standpoint was using grounded theory. So that researcher is telling that I, as a researcher, preferred grounded theory over any other methods. However, another researcher can say that I always wanted to take, like thematic content analysis as my epistemology. So the way how you see the reality also makes difference in your truth. So this is what the basic idea of research is. And if you say it clearly or simply, it will be like there is no single truth that anybody can find out. And that is why you will find that on the same topic, many of the researchers also do their research. Then comes the methodology, which is basically the starting point of your research. Now I see that people start with the methods. Okay, that I want to use SPSS, or I have collected some data and I want to use MaxQDA for your qualitative data analysis. But what they miss out is the fact that there is some methodological standpoints that you have to study before you go into your defining your methods. So basically ontology and epistemology, so ontology and epistemology decides your paradigm. So paradigm means nothing but where you stand. Okay, so if I say that on my ontology, I'll give you another example, that my ontological standpoint is that, so the reality is because of, because of a specific type of mosquito, malaria happens. Okay, so that is reality. My epistemology is that because the pond near our house is is polluted, that's why mosquitoes are there is a huge concentration of mosquito there, and that is why malaria is happening in the village. So when you are studying the problem of malaria in a village, you are deciding that ontology is because of the mosquitoes, malaria is happening. Epistemology can be because of the polluted water, malaria is happening. Somebody else also can say that no, not because of the polluted water, rather there has been a lot of rain last year, and there has been a lot of there has been a lot of holes or on the road where these mosquitoes are getting getting their numbers up. So that is one of the epistemologies. Methodologies, now you have to decide that what methodology are you going to do. So one social scientist can say that I would go and interview all the people in the village. Okay, so social scientist people will be always defining towards the what is the implication of malaria. So they will say that I will go to the village and I will ask everybody through an interview that why malaria is happening. But a scientist will say, so a pure scientist or a person who is doing their PhD in chemistry, they will say that no, I will go back and I will check the concentration of pollutants in the water. Okay, so there somebody is going to check the pollutants and somebody is going to check with the people. So their methodology is varying. Okay, and depending on your methodology, your paradigms are also varying. So paradigms is nothing but where you stand. So whether you are in the social science paradigm or whether you are in the pure sciences paradigm. So this is very important to understand. So while you are reading an article, you first check that what is the ontological and epistemological standpoint. What is the overall truth? So ontology, as I said, is something universal. So try to check that what is the universal truth. And how do you check what is the universal truth? So let's say the problem of poverty. Okay, so poverty is a very huge problem. Now, in some of the cases, inequality can give rise to poverty. In some other cases, deprivation can also give rise to poverty. Now, the thing is, poverty is the ontology. So people are poor at one place. So that is the ontological standpoint. Now, epistemological standpoints will vary. A social scientist will go for some other method, whereas, a sociology, within the social sciences, a sociologist will go for one method, an economist will go for another method. So that is what you have to, while you are reading the paper, first decide what is the ontology, what is the epistemology, what is the methodology, then you come to the methodology and you check that which paradigm you want to shift. Giving my example, that I started with the problem of poverty, but whether I should study poverty as an economist or a sociologist, that we have to first decide. If I am taking sociologist point of view, then I have to go for interview method, I have to go for like grounded theories. But if I am studying it as an economist, I have to go for secondary data. I have to collect all the questionnaire filled in questionnaires through 5-point Likert scale. So that is the methodology that we have to see. So your ontology plus your epistemology decides your paradigm. When you read anything, you first check that what is the reality and what type of epistemological standpoint a person is taking. That will define your paradigm. Next slide, please. Then comes so there are different types of ontology, as I said, and so depending on your standpoint, depending on your ontology and epistemology, your paradigms will be decided. So first paradigm is the positivism paradigm. Now simply saying that ontology of positivism people is that there is only one single reality. So what do you mean by one single reality? So you have to understand that one single reality means yes or no. So there are some people you would see in your life also that who will ask you yes or no. I don't want your explanation. People who are belonging to that positivism paradigm will obviously say that you just tell me what is your yes, is it a yes or is it a no? Is it 1 or is it 0? So these are the people who belongs to the ontological standpoints. Then you come to epistemology. Their epistemology or their standpoint is knowledge can be measured. So they say that knowledge can be measured. So you can say that is it right or is it wrong? Is it yes or is it no? Is it 0 or is it 1? Is it female or is it male? So their perspective of seeing is very limited. However, their perspective of seeing is very much focused. Okay. So when you are economist, you are always when you are an economist, and that too quantitative economist, then you are seeing that everything can be decided through a single reality. Whereas your epistemology will be, I can measure anything. You tell me poverty, I can measure poverty. You tell me attitude, I can measure attitude through a 5-point Likert scale. Then comes the constructivism. So constructivism people are the exact opposite of the positivists. So they are saying that there can be multiple realities. So social sciences people who are present out here who do qualitative analysis, their ontology or their reality is that there can be multiple realities. And while they are saying that there can be multiple realities, they are saying that their epistemological standpoint is that reality has to be interpreted. So whatever the researcher interprets from the from the study, that becomes your reality. So constructivist people are the people who believes in subjective knowledge rather than an objective knowledge. So these are the people who do research in social science, in the sociology, or let's say philosophy, so all the or language as such. So these are the people who belong to that kind of epistemological standpoint. Finally, there has been a rise in the number of pragmatism paradigm. What is pragmatism? They say that nothing is right and nothing is wrong. So they say that reality is constantly negotiated and debated and interpreted. It means, so depending on my choice, so depending on my requirement, I will take a quantitative perspective, or I will take a qualitative perspective, or I can take a mixed method approach also. In the same study, I can go for mixed method approach also. So there is this, there is these pragmatism people who believe that it can be negotiated, it can be interpreted also. Okay. So knowledge should be examined through best tools. So this is the part where this is the part where which is the reason why pragmatism is getting so much attention these days, because in this method there is no such type of limitation on what type of methodology are you taking. So and how is this related to your thesis, I will tell you now. So if you are a quantitative researcher, then your please go back. Okay. So, okay, so if you are a quantitative researcher, there so if you are a quantitative researcher, you will obviously be in the positivism sphere paradigm. Okay, so first define your paradigm, whether you are a positivist or you are a constructivism or you are a pragmatism. So if you are a quantitative researcher, purely quantitative researcher, you don't do any research through the like on ideas or on views, opinions. If you are not doing, then you are a positivism people. If you are doing research through the interview method, like subjective interview method, then you are a constructivism. And if finally, if you are admitting that, so a person like me believes that wherever I want to apply, depending on the study, I will apply the methods. So when I am telling that, I am becoming a pragmatism researcher. So this is where first thing you have to do, and next next tomorrow we will be deciding that, or we will take the opinions of some of the people, that whether they were able to decide on their paradigms or not. Next slide please. Okay. Okay, so I hope that I have not confused you to a limit where you are till now, getting confused. But still, if you are getting confused, you can see this slide that I have already discussed. That if you are a quantitative researcher, and what do you mean by quantitative researcher? So people who are doing research in the case of mathematics, people, anything related to maths, okay, in which numbers are there. So there have been many of the views that the world runs on two things. The whole world runs on two things. They are numbers and words. Okay. So if you are good in either number or words or both, if you are good in both, then you can, you can rule the world. However, if you are good in one thing also, that will also do. So to become a good researcher, either you have to good with the quantitative, which is the number, or you have to be good with the texts, which is the ideas, opinions, theories, concepts. So all these things are there. So this is where you have to decide your methodology. So depending on your ontological standpoint, this is what I have been telling, that depending on your ontological standpoints and your epistemology, your methodology will be decided. So first decide your ontology, then epistemology, then go on to your methodology. Next slide, please. Now, while you are getting confused between these three demarcations, there is a simple demarcation also, that some of the people are positivism and some of the people are post-positivism. And what is this positivism and post-positivism? So positivism means nothing but the numbers. Okay, so where they believe that reality is objective, they are much more scientific in nature, they follow a quantitative paradigm, they are experimentalists, and they are realists. It means that they believe that there is a single reality which can be measured. However, the other paradigm that we generally see is post-positivism. So post-positivism is nothing but, so some of the scientists say that there should be, so as I said, there should be either numbers or either text. Now, post-positivism people said that even the mixed method people also should be coming under post-positivism. And what does these post-positivists do? They say that reality is subjective, and they said that it should be humanistic. Okay, so any kind of study should be based on the human needs rather than the scientific. If you see here, all the pure sciences students or scholars, they believe that reality should be objective. They just want to get that 0.05 value less than 0.05 value. So in order to prove their hypothesis, so these people will have an hypothesis, and their whole objective will be to just get an hypothesis and to prove it. Whereas positivism people do not go by an objective hypothesis. Okay, rather than that, they go for a subjective hypothesis, and sometimes they do not, many of the studies like exploratory studies, they do not have hypothesis at all. So they believe that all type of studies should be humanistic in nature, and they should be based on human views, opinions, and all. They are much more qualitative or mixed method approach. So they they later on decided that only through text maybe it is very much difficult. So when does numbers come into existence? So numbers come into existence when you are basically seeing that you have to summarize the things. Okay, so all quantitative formulas that you see, their whole objective is to summarize and give you a brief note about the whole population. Okay, whereas post-positivism people believe that I will go to each and every single person and collect their opinion, and then I will decide what is the truth. Mixed method people, they saw that it is not, when qualitative researchers went on to do research, one of the main, criticisms that they faced is that the research from qualitative research is not being able to generalize. So you are not able to generalize the findings of the research, and that's why they got into a research paradigm which is called as the mixed paradigm, in which they are doing majorly qualitative, but some of the quantitative aspects are also there. They are also called as interpretivists, and they are called as critical realism. Critical realism means they are very much critical, so they test and retest. So each and everyone's opinion matter in the study. Whereas in the case of positivism people, it does not matter that what does the people say. So there can be, they say that for them, a person stating a complete different story is just a case, so they can ignore the case. So there is an aspect of manipulation in the case of positivists. Okay, so generally it is said that you should not manipulate in your research. But if you see that in the social science, in the pure sciences research, there is a lot of manipulation of data happens, which is ethical also. This is ethical because any of the extreme cases which tends to make your model weak, or which does not go by the general truth, is always ignored. So that is what the whole idea of positivism and post-positivism is there. So you have to also decide. So while you are starting your paper or while you're starting your thesis, you have to very clearly, decide that what paradigms you are there and what is the problem, what is your ontology, what is your epistemology, what methods you are going to choose, and based on your methodology, your methods will come. Please go to the next slide. Now this is the next stage. So what is the, many times as I have been telling, that people confuse methodology with methods. Okay, so I have a good sense of methodology. I know good methods. So there is a difference between these two that you have to understand. So in my limited knowledge, if you ask any of the good researcher, they will say that methodology is much more important than methods. So I will tell you why, and I will tell you a kind of story, you can say, that what is methodology. And so there was a king, and this is a made up story obviously, but so somebody is asking that what is methodology and what is method. So the king is telling that methodology means a warrior's skill, and method means the warrior's sword. Okay. Now, what do you mean by methodology and method? That you can very easily know. So the skill of an warrior is the methodology. So methodology is something that you grow over a period of time. Okay. Methodology is something that you grow over a period of time. By practice, you learn. Method is something that is used only for a certain period of time. So for now, I am working with SPSS. Tomorrow I will be shifting, for now I am working with SEM. Tomorrow I will be working with some other technique. Other day I will be working with FSQCA, which is fuzzy set quantitative and quantitative analysis. So methodology of a person is the way how they look at their research. Okay. So this is one of the most important things. I have seen that people putting, in livelihood research. So the good example is in livelihood research. If you go and search about livelihood research or sustainable livelihood research, you will find that none of the good papers apply a quantitative paradigm to livelihood research, because livelihood is something that is qualitative in nature. So everybody's livelihood is different from the other person's livelihood. But I have seen some of the papers which is not published in that good journals, and that gets rejected over a period of time, is only because their methodology that they are using is quantitative. Okay, just because they saw that there is a scale and they can apply, so they will be going forward and applying that. They will apply that quantitative thing. But the study demands a qualitative analysis. So every study speaks for itself. Like in Asian Paints, we say that har gor kuch kehta hai. So every study speaks for itself. So in this case, methodology will guide you, and methodology will tell you that what should be, the whole paradigm in which you should work. Methods, as I said, are only tools. So they can be learned over a period of time. So we will discuss the, very briefly we will discuss, because I can see the time is going to, so within 3 minutes I'll finish this. So this, the objective of methodology is to determine the appropriateness of the methods. So please note the appropriateness. Okay. So which method to use, methodology tells you. So while you are writing methodology used or research methodology in a paper, mention that what type of methodology you are using. So your methodology can be a qualitative paradigm. Your methodology can be a grounded theory approach. Okay. So these are the approaches which decide that what type of data you would be collecting. Method, on the other hand, the objective of method is to find out the solution for a research problem. So it's just a tool. You put the data, get the output, and that is a method. Okay. Then methodology is analysis of all methods and procedures of the investigation. So basically what you do is to check that whether the procedures or methods are fitting to the context or not. Methods are just behavior or tools. Okay. So just know that methods are just tools. So methodologies are applied during the initial stage of research. So this is why I have been telling that methods can be changed at any point of your research. Okay, but methodology cannot be changed. If you have gone into one methodology, you have to stick with this methodology for the rest of your research. Okay, so please be very careful while you are choosing the methodology, and in that way DC committee members and what we will be discussing in the other webinars, that we will be seeing that where should you clarify about your methodology. So it can be applied only during the initial stage, whereas methods are applied during the later stage of the study. So it can be changed. So it is a systematic strategy to find the solution to a research problem. So it's very systematic. So methodology is nothing but a blueprint of your research. Okay. So when I ask you what is your methodology, you have to very clearly say that I took this problem. I knew that this problem will require me to have this kind of ontology. So this is my ontology. I knew that this kind of ontology will require me to have this kind of epistemological issues, and that is why I chose this methodology. So these are the things. Go back and in your diary, please mention what is your ontology, what is your epistemology, what is your methodology. Finally, it will be very easy for you to understand that. So people say that there are so many methods, which method to apply? It depends on your methodology clearly. Okay. And finally, that methodology has also several techniques and methods are also several techniques. So methods are mostly based on experiments, whereas methodology is based on the idea of the researcher as a whole. So on this, this small presentation looks very trivial when you see it. However, once you go into any of the paper, once you start reading the paper, you would understand that why a paper gets rejected and why a paper gets selected. You would see that all the good papers have one thing in common, that their authors have a very good standpoint on their methodology, and so it's not a shaky paper. We say that it's not a shaky paper. Shaky paper means to some extent they are using something, and in the later stage you find that the researcher is getting diverted from the problem itself or getting diverted from the methodology itself and taking some other methodology. So please be very careful about the selection of your methodology. And in my limited knowledge, so methodologies, there are many types of methodology that we'll be discussing, but in my limited knowledge, wherever I will try to solve your specific problems, that what type of methodology you should take, I'll be taking those questions. So next slide. So that will be something for this, for this webinar or for today. What you can do, so every webinar, I'll give you some of the assignment that you have to go back and do it yourself. So it's like going to the gym. So this webinar series will be more sort of going to the gym. You will not see the difference in one particular day. So one of my mentors said that you do not become bodybuilder in one single day. Similarly, you don't become researcher in one single day. So it will take some time. However, if you go on and go back and do the same assignments, you will be finding it much more easier, and your path for the further research will be much more easier in the days to come. So I will take the questions now.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Priya Krishna Mohanty. One more aspect which we can cover as part of today's webinar is positioning you and your research problem on the research topic. So yes. One question which I'd like to ask you is, most of the times people take your research topic just because the topic is very trending, without even checking whether they are passionate about the topic, whether they have sufficient expertise about the topic. So what's your take, whether people should take a new area in order to conduct the research, or they should go for an area which they are familiar, wherein they have some expertise and they are also passionate about it? What's your take on this? Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
You're audible.
Yes. Dr. Prem, what's your take on this? Dr. Prem, are you there? Am I audible? Dr. Prem? Or anyone else would like to share your opinion? Yeah, yes. Yeah, have you got the question? Have you got the question?
Yes, sir. Sorry for the slight glitch. I think
no issue,
internet got disconnected. Right. Okay, so this is a very interesting question, and this I have been consulting many of the research scholars over a period of time, and this is the most common question, as I said. So my standpoint on this is very critical in nature. So while I started as a researcher, I had a topic in mind which was radical. So every researcher wants to be a hero, and that's why they choose a topic. And this is the biggest mistake that a researcher does while they are choosing their research. So in the quest to become a hero, they take a subject which is having a very limited, a limited scope. So I would give you an example. So this COVID-19 pandemic was one of the things that that grappled the whole world. But was it enough to take this COVID-19 as a research or PhD thesis topic? Was the question. And I say that it should not be taken as a research question, because you have to see that research is a very time-bound process. And while you are studying something over a period of 5 years, it needs to have some of the implication which is at least 50 years of time. So researchers taking, researchers taking topics which are very new, very novel, I have seen that often they find it very much difficult to, in their later stages, they do not find literature, first of all. Even though they find good literature, they do not know that what will be their methodology, because there is no particular guideline which you should be following while you are selecting your methodology. Your guide is not, the most important thing is your guide is not aware about the topic that you are doing research on. So all the things will work against you. However, some of the researchers, some of the researchers feel that, okay, they can be, like a overnight Romeo, they can become. But I always say, and my mentors have always told me that in research, there is no such type of shortcuts. So you cannot become shortcuts. So my critical point of view on this would be, take a topic or make your standpoint in a topic which has been already researched properly, and try to find out that minute thing that has not been researched, rather than taking a broad topic and then repenting that what did I do wrong in the later stages.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I also have come across wherein a scholar takes up a topic, work for first 6 months, 1 year, after that realizes that it is too broad, so let me change the topic. Ideally, the topic what they propose to take, especially for a PhD level research, it should have scope for researching for next 4 to 5 years. Then there is a great potential.
And the rule says that if you are spending 5 years time in your research, then your research implication, the topic implication, should be at least 50 years time. So into 10. So if you are doing your research for 4 years, then 40 years of implication. So at least 10 years of implication that you should be having.
Great, great. The second question which I'd like to ask you is, as a PhD scholar, they have different expectations into their mind. They join for a PhD program. Number one, they want to get a PhD degree within the minimum duration of time. Number two, they need to publish paper. Number three, there are a few people who always feels that, yes, there should be a real knowledge contribution. Is it supposed to be restricted only with getting a degree or publishing a paper, or gaining a knowledge in a particular field, or people should actually work towards having some implications for the stakeholders related to the topic? Because if you look at in India, most of the research what we produce, it lies either in the form of a book or in an online repository. So the implication aspect, it's hardly, I would say, like as negligible percentages there in India. So what's your take on this?
Very interesting question, and fortunately I have asked this question to one of my teachers. So his answer is the best answer that I got, so I would be quoting that answer. So he said, tell me how many PhD research theses you have seen getting into reality and becoming something that helped the society on an overall level. Einstein's theory of, Newton's theory of gravity was just by an accident. So Newton did not write a thesis on it. If you see any of the theses, any of the good scientists or remarkable scientists, and Einstein for that matter, his thesis was on something else. So he told that it is very hard, or you will very hardly you will find that any research thesis becoming something into reality and getting into taking shape in which you are getting some societal implications. One of the crux of this question remains on the issue that whether research finishes with the research degree or it just starts with the research degree. So my idea and his own quotes were this, that research actually starts with the PhD degree. Research does not end with the PhD degree. in your lifetime, you can actually get hundreds of theories. But from those hundreds of theories, if there is only one theory, so if you see the case of Abhijit Banerjee and Esther Duplo, they have written so many papers. If you see that their combined citation will be around 3 lakhs. But if you see their whole life, they have written almost around thousands of papers. But only one random experiment theory of poverty that became that made them to get the Nobel Prize. So I would say that it's not necessary that your PhD thesis should be something which is yes, it should be rigorous. What you can do as a researcher is that you have to understand that you have some limitation. No research is complete with the PhD degree. You have to finish the degree. My first recommendation to all you people will be, because I did the same mistake. After 3 years, I am asking this question. If he would have told me in the first year itself, I would have changed myself. So first think that how many years, within that many years, what is possible. If you have something else, then you keep it for your like for your PDF topic you keep, but do not extend your thesis saying that you are going to contribute something extraordinary to the society. I'm very much sorry, because it's very realistic, but unfortunately
Yeah.
it is hard.
Is it right to sum up that for a prospective scholar, they'll have to be very clear on their research topic, the methodology, what they have used, the analysis they have done, and they should be able to articulate the findings of the study in the best possible way, which helps
Yes,
them to submits their thesis and also to get the degree.
exactly.
Last question which I'd like to ask you is, oftentimes, like very enthusiastically, most of the PhD scholar joins for 6 months, okay, first 1 year, okay, after that 1.5 year, after 1.5 years, slowly the energy level comes down. And there are times like many of the people takes a decision, let me discontinue, this is not cup of my tea or coffee. So if I ask you 3 tips which anybody can follow to be engaged into the successful completion of a PhD program, what would be the 3 tips which you would like to
Yes.
give?
Okay. So it depends on the researcher, but for me, these 3 things worked out. Actually, there are many things, but 3 things, if you ask me. First thing, keep publishing. Okay. Right, wrong, good, bad, all these things do not see. Do not see if you are doing right or wrong. You will make mistakes. You will publish in very bad journals. You will publish in good journals. It will happen. Research happens over a period of time. But the problem with the life of a researcher is that they need to have some motivation inside. So always keep on, like something that motivates you. Second thing, you always keep it time bound. So when you know that there is a stop limit, stopwatch is working, so you always work fast. So keep that time limit with you. Keep that time limit with you. Keep that time in your mind. And the third thing will be always and always listen to your guide. This is something that I have been telling all my research. In your PhD, your guide is the only one who will help you. Nobody else. So even if you do not like him or her, please stick to him. If he says that orange is green, it is green. If he says that orange is yellow, it is yellow. And this is what I am saying after doing so many years of research. I have putting so many years. I would say that please stick to your guide, because he won't stay in your life for the whole life. So your job is to convince him, get your PhD degree. After that, whatever you want to do, you do. So these will be the 3 things that I would be suggesting.
I understand the perspective of a scholar, but definitely there are ways how you can able to approach your research supervisor,
Yes.
put forward your concern in a very friendly manner,
Yes.
which does not disturbs their intellectual ego or any other thing which will
Never.
put the relationship into a better stage.
For
So
that
there
matter,
are
every research guide will be happy
right.
if their scholar is working more. So I
So
will take that in.
great. So there are nothing is right, nothing is wrong, nothing is good, nothing is bad. But we have something called as regulations. We have some of the
Yes.
protocols which need to be followed. We'll have to ensure that those regulations, those protocols are followed, so that we will able to successfully complete whatever may be the research endeavors of ourselves is concerned. So with this note, I thank Mr. Priya Krishna Mohanty. We will see you all in tomorrow's webinar with the topic proposed. Thank you all. Have a
Yes,
great
yes.
evening. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.